Okay, there we go. How we doing, everybody, tonight? It is currently November 19th, Monday evening. My PowerPoint show has closed out. I'm just opening that right now. Okay, so welcome to DES109. Today is week 2 of Mod 12. And we are going to be going over the projects from last week and just doing a very basic review. There was a lot of great discussion and the assignments came out really great. So I'm not going to go too in-depth last week's stuff. We're just going to keep moving forward and kind of go from there. All right, so let us just dive right in. Okay, so now we, it sounds like we actually have someone that just came in. Let me take a look. And hi, Jamin, how are you? Here we go. Good and tired? Yeah, me too. Just came back from parent-teacher conferences for my kids, so I get it. So I hadn't actually gotten going yet, so we're just going to dive right in now. Is that okay with you? All right. Okay, so to get started, the agenda for today, like I had just mentioned on the recording here, we're just going to do a very, very quick review of last week. Excuse me. And then we're going to do a whole bunch of critiques and do some feedback. Jamin, you can absolutely jump in on any of the critiques. Tell us the things that you like, don't like, things that you think work and why they work. That's one of the great things about actually attending the session, because you can do it in live time. And we have a ton of people that submitted. I think I only had a couple that might have been a little bit late, but everyone did a great job. So we've got plenty to work with. If I haven't, at the end of this session, I haven't critiqued yours. If you're watching this, excuse me, or Jamin, if you happen to be, if you happen to notice that I don't grab yours as well, anyone watching this, feel free to send me a message if you actually would like a critique. Any assignment that was submitted on time, it was submitted by this past Saturday at midnight, I will accept submissions, resubmissions until the end of this week as well. Hi, Nikki. How are you, hon? Okay, there we go. Nikki, can you hear me? Just want to make sure. You shoot me a message in the chat. Just make sure that that you can hear me. Okay. I hope so. Ah, there we go. Okay, great. Okay, so just moving on a little bit. After the critiques that we do, which is going to take up the most of this session, you'd be surprised at the information that you can actually learn simply by viewing critiques. We'll do a very, very brief overview of week 2, and because I'm going to go a little bit more into that tomorrow. So Nikki, I was just mentioning we're going to do a lot of critiques today, and please feel free to jump in and submit any information in the chat there as to the things that you like or don't like, things that you think that work or don't work, and because that's one of the benefits of actually attending live is you kind of get it to interact, and it's actually a benefit for me as well because I get to bounce ideas off you guys too. So just to start out, we have week 1 under our belts, which is great. So we talked a little bit about design trends and design history, and you guys watched the recording, the pre-recording on Gestalt theory and the design principles, and then we went over a little bit more on session 2 of last week, the design principles. Whoops, excuse me, I just accidentally hit my mouse. So we kind of did a basic overhaul there. This week, we're going to be talking about the elements and the principles of design. If Um, if you have already watched the pre-recording up to this point, it kind of goes over, lines and dots and shapes and that kind of thing. So it talks about how the elements and the principles of design work together to kind of create your composition. This week is an advertising makeover, which is what you guys are going to be doing for your project. And your assessment is actually going to be self-critique, which means you're going to be taking a look at your assignment that you create this week, not that you created last week, but the advertisement you create this week, and you're actually going to be putting together a critique explaining to your fake client why you did what you did, why you think works, why you think it works, and kind of justifying your reasoning for the designs. Next week, we're going to be doing Finding Creativity, talking about inspiration sources and where you can find them, where you can extract them from, and learning from the past. That is the social media assignment that week. And week 4, developing your design presence, where we talk a little bit about the importance of having an online presence and featuring your work, showcasing your work. And we're going to do a demo on creating an online portfolio. Hi there, Jamin. Welcome back. So that is probably, although I love design, that's what I obviously do in my business. I actually really enjoy doing the portfolio portion because it shows everyone how to feature their own work, and I like being able to kind of help people push forward and be confident enough in their work to be showing it. So. Just to clean up house here, week 1's grades, I'm almost finished. I got to do some comments in the assessments, and I think I only have 1 or 2 more assignments to grade, and then the discussion grades will be done by Wednesday morning. So if you haven't received a grade just yet, don't freak out, you'll get it. Late submissions will be accepted up until the end of this week with a small late deduction. If you submitted on time, I did already mention this once, but if you submitted on time and you took a look at your feedback and you want to resubmit for potentially a higher grade, I will accept that also by the end of this week. I only accept 1 revision regrade, so feel free to take a look in that, and there should be an announcement in there with an explanation on how to actually look at the rubric and see your information, your comments and your feedback. I can double check that afterwards, but I believe I put that at the end of the week. So okay, well, thanks, Jamin. I appreciate the permission there. I have them set up. I think I just have them set up, kind of 1 through 28 or something like that. And I was just kind of going to breeze right through them, and however much time we had was what I was going to do. As I wanted to make sure that I don't use anybody's names just in case. So if I happen to show yours, awesome. And if not, if you want to meet up with me at some point again on the Zoom room, or even stay a little bit later today after I shut the recording off, we can go over that. So again, very, very quick review, because I do want to get going on those critiques because we have so many of them. The discussion last week, we had a lot of really great participation, talking about inspirations from the past and blending the design styles. A lot of people mentioned that they would go to the internet for their main resource, which is definitely a very common go-to these days. It's kind of like an automatic. Don't forget that there are definitely plenty of resources out there that you can even start from the internet. You know, you can go to the historychannel.com and find information on that, that even though it's on the internet, it technically is a slightly more, it's going to have more credibility than, you know, obviously going to Wikipedia or something like that. You can go to different museum sites that might actually direct you to various periodicals that are in print, but are available online. You might find some information on a local art show that could give you some information too. So don't stick just with the internet. Make sure that you are looking elsewhere too, because there are some wonderful, unexpected places to actually find inspiration from the past as well. And just kind of take that road and see where it leads you. The assignment was the design history flashcards, which we're going to be critiquing. And the quiz, just take a brief few minutes, if you haven't already, to take a look at any wrong answers you might have and check out the correct answers. Make sure that you take notes, because that is going to be the most valuable part, figuring out where you went wrong, because this is all the basis, the foundation for the graphic design work. And that's where you are going to be learning from. That's how you are going to improve your design capabilities. Okay, so first off, learning from critiques. I didn't realize I had my resubmission note here like 3 times, so I apologize for that. Resubmissions for anything that you happen to do today, if you submitted your assignment on time last week and you decide that you're going to resubmit, and you haven't done so far, feel free to take any of the information or all of the information that we do in this critique today and utilize it, because it can be very important. I do also want to make sure that I mention that me as a teacher, I am going to be hopefully providing helpful critiques to you folks, because I have been in the business for a while, but that doesn't mean that I can't learn from you all as well. Working with colleagues is a huge benefit. So you very well may find, and I would hope that you all would find colleagues, collaborators that would be willing to provide critiques to your work, even if they're not clients. Clients sometimes don't give very helpful critiques because they know what they're looking for, or what they're not looking for. So in that type of scenario, they're really providing you more with suggestions or direction, not necessarily critique. But hopefully you find yourself in a scenario where you have other designers that kind of know what they're talking about, that can provide helpful feedback. And you can receive that in a manner that will allow you, with an open mind, that would allow you to improve your work. And in addition to that, that you might actually be working with others that you would want to be providing feedback as well. You want to make sure that you're not necessarily providing feedback that's unsolicited. You don't want to be telling someone that they did something wrong, or that you don't like something if they're not willing to hear about it. That obviously can cause some bad blood. But if you're diplomatic about it, even unsolicited advice can sometimes be beneficial on the receiving end, if that person is open-minded, willing to listen to some criticism, and that is just, it's a very reciprocating kind of environment, the art world, which is probably one of the reasons I love it. Okay, so to start off in how to give a helpful critique, I call this the rule of 3. I found it in a couple of articles, and I think it's actually incredibly helpful. Try to provide some positives, 3 positives of the design of the layout that you are critiquing, and also 3 areas that maybe you don't find work real well, or that could be improved. Sometimes you might find information that says try to do like a feedback sandwich, you know, do a positive that starts the critique, have in the middle, have something that needs some kind of feedback or needs some kind of work, and then end it with another positive. You might not always find that kind of balance. And in addition to that, sometimes that might actually find, or it might almost seem insincere. But if you can locate 3 items or more, obviously, that you can find that are beneficial, that kind of work, and then 3 that you think really need a little bit of work, it seems like you're kind of balancing things out. So you want to make sure you're trying to promote the positives and help the designer improve where they're looking to improve, because that is really one of the ways that, one of the reasons why we are all looking for critiques. Be specific in what you like and don't just say that you like. Explain why you think it works. You can have all the subjective comments you want. You can you can poll 50 different people with the same layout, and they can all say that they like the colors, and then you find out later that it really kind of doesn't work in the for the audience where it's going. Just because they like it doesn't mean it actually works. Explain that you think that the organic images really kind of flow with the layout, or that the color scheme creates a very calming effect, which is very helpful for a meditative poster, for a yoga studio, you know, things like that. Very, very specific kind of items that will tell the designer why something works and why it doesn't work. You want to consider the principles of design: CRAP, contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. Like I said in my previous, I think it was Tuesday's recording, in the back of my mind, I always think, okay, well, if I don't use CRAP, the acronym, when designing, that's how my design is going to look. Want to make sure that I produce aesthetic looking compositions. So I like to make sure that I have the correct balance of contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. It seems like a lot of the biggest area, I think, in the assignments that had some issues this week were alignment and proximity, and we'll go over that a little bit. So if yours happens to be one of those, you can focus on working on that, and again, we'll go over that specifically in a little bit. Apply the feedback that you're giving to a recipient to your own work. Think about why you think something works, and look at your own designs. Are you using the elements in the same way? Are you applying the the principles the same way in your own work? Or were you simply giving that feedback to the original designer because they had given you a composition that you hadn't created, and you happened to see something that you don't necessarily see in your own work? Try to look at your own work from a different point of view. What I also actually like to do is I take someone that's not even an artist. I like to sometimes take their opinions as well. My husband's a Spanish teacher, and he's not an artist, but I very often like to get his opinion as well, because it's completely different from mine. I know he likes symmetry. I don't. I very often create asymmetrical designs and don't even realize I'm doing it. And just because something is asymmetrical doesn't mean it's not balanced. But every once in a while, I'll show him something, and he says, oh, you know what? I really would prefer it symmetrical. And I look at it and try the suggestion, and it ends up working. So don't be afraid of that. Don't be offended if the designer doesn't take your suggestions. Oh, excuse me. Oh, I wanted to go back. don't take that personally. The designer might know something about the client or the project that you don't, and your suggestion doesn't apply. You're just giving your opinion, and that is fine. And also, when you're on the opposite side, think seriously by why you're not taking suggestions from others. Like I just said, is there something that you know about the project that that the critiquer doesn't know? Is there something you know about the client? Like, for example, they hate script fonts, and your critiquer suggests to use Edwardian script, which is a very flowy, elaborate kind of design. And that's what they're suggesting, and you know that your client doesn't like that. You know, that is a perfectly valid reason. But also take what they say into account, kind of weigh the benefits against the disadvantages, and determine whether or not it would be a move to even try. And I know I mentioned this in at least one of my recordings from last week. The wonderful thing about design these days, graphic design, is that it's digital, and you can very, very easily make a change and then go right back to it if you don't like it. Or you can save multiple copies. That's also one of the great things about this industry. And lastly, remember that your work is not you. Don't take it personally. If you have a client, which is fairly inevitable, that says, I hate it, I don't like it, that's not at all what I was looking for, you're going to find those people that may be socially awkward, maybe aren't very articulate, or maybe are just plain rude. And that's going to happen. Don't take it personally. They're not saying that they don't like you, unless they are saying they don't like you. But art and design is a very, very subjective field. It took me a few years to realize, as I was putting together designs, that sometimes what I think looks wonderful, others don't like. Others maybe like things a little bit more simple. Others think that there are other color combinations that work better. And after a little while, I realized that I didn't need to take it personally, and I got a lot less stressed. And you don't want that in your work either. You want this to be enjoyable. You're going to produce better designs. You're going to produce better designs faster. And then ultimately remember that you're not going to make everyone happy. And if you can remember that, then you will be very happy. And that is especially helpful to remember in this industry. Okay, so are we ready for critiquing? Let's do this. Okay, so we're going to start here. Oh no, where did it all go? I never put them in here. I'm sorry. It must have. There we go. My goodness. That made me a little nervous. Okay, we're going to open up the first one. Thank you. Okay, here we go. I was even cleaning off my desktop the other day, Jamin, because I had a whole bunch of junk out there. Okay. Now, this is the first one we're going to look at today. We have the postmodern era. And Nikki and Jamin, feel free to, like I said, feel free to jump in the chat with anything that you think of here. Things that you like, things that you don't like, items that you feel are working really well and not working well. This particular student decided to go with a portrait layout, which actually worked very well. I think he did it for all three. 1, 2, 3. Yep, did it with all three. We have some nice contrast in the typography here, even though he's stuck with a sans serif font. It's probably, I think down here is probably either Arial or Helvetica. And then this, I think, is in the future or something similar to that. He used some contrast by increasing the size in some of these. You know, we have this big headline up here. So even though it's not real bold, it's still obviously much bigger. And again here, a little bit bigger. We have the contemporary application title here that's been bolded, so it's kind of separate from the other paragraph copy. We have a nice example of proximity because he did a border around here that essentially is the same width all the way around. And he provided a nice amount of spacing in between the paragraphs here. And everything is fairly center aligned, so that works well. Oh, excuse me. Okay, we're going to scroll down here. His color palette is fairly representative of the style. Although I didn't actually mention this in my lecture, my demo last week, and I should have because several students did it, and so as a result, I'm obviously not docking points on this. When you're doing a color palette, try to keep the palette to just the colors that you're looking to do, and not include the stroke around it. That kind of detracts from the shapes here. So, and I don't know if he did that intentionally because, you know, black was in this image here, but it's probably unlikely that was the reasoning behind it. Very similar kind of layout here, a little bit of a change in font. Probably could have increased the proximity here, the spacing between the border and the heroic realism title up here, probably just by taking the title, the image, and the era here, and just kind of nudging it down a little bit, you know, grabbing all three things and just nudging it down just a little bit. Whoop, goodness, I hate when this thing pops up. And yeah, there we go. Well, I'll have to figure out how to close that out later. Again, probably could have just increased the spacing there a little bit. Okay, and some very interesting shapes for the color palette here. Okay, we have some maroons. We could probably have even added a navy in here as well. Okay, we have the same issue with proximity right up here where the arts and crafts era title is kind of encroaching on the border. But again, could fix this just by grabbing 1, 2, 3 items, or actually maybe even grabbing all of the items within the border and nudging it down because it does look like there's a little bit of space in here. We have in all 3 of these cards a nice demonstration of repetition because he used you know, the same fonts. He would have, you know, this one right here and this one right here would be the same font style, I think, in all 3. Let's jump back up. Oh, actually, this was a little different. But we have this font style and this font style are the same. And then we go all the way back up here. Okay, and this one was obviously down here as well, but he had made it a little bit bigger. So, you know, the style of typography is repeated. And excuse me, there were some certain elements that were repeated that went from the front of the card to the back of the card. And actually that was not a good example. Here we go. Let's go back up here because we had, you know, the shapes of the borders here were also included in the borders on the second one here. Okay, so that's anything to add here, Jamin or Nikki? Not exactly. Okay, well, we'll move on to the next one. No, Nikki? All right, well, I'm going to ask you guys for, I do apologize. No problem, not a problem at all. Okay. So now we have another one here. This person decided to do it landscape. Oh, you have your newborn. Boy or girl? No, you know what? The probably was not not fair of me to ask if you're having to deal with the newborn as well, girl. Well, I've got two myself, so and I miss those days. Whoop! Accidentally keep scrolling on my mouse here. Okay, so here we go. We'll go back to the design here. Like I said, this particular student decided to go landscape instead of portrait. Um, and they did a very nice job of utilizing contrast within the typography here. Um, you know, we have a nice um, bold, a little bit larger text on the titles here of these different categories. And that's repeated up top here with the name of the era and the dates. They even actually repeated the colors within the text itself. So we have the blue text and this kind of olivey green that you can also see within here, within the image itself. So almost creating the color palette swatches without even, they probably did it on purpose, but, you know, obviously it kind of flows there. It's left aligned, which looks very nice. It's a decent amount of space around here for the margin, and it looks like it's about the same all the way around. Excuse me. Contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity. Looks good. And we have, here is the, I'm actually going to zoom out a little bit here. Here's the card for the back, the color palette. And I wasn't sure when I was looking at this if this space was on purpose or not. I am going to guess that this individual actually started out by doing something a little different. You have the one block here that extends all the way from top to bottom. And then they probably tried doing something a little different by having this one kind of stop short, and then the same thing here. That in itself would have looked fairly balanced. But because we have the citation in here, it kind of makes this area look a little empty. So it probably could be fixed just by bringing this guy up too. So now then we have kind of everything centered. You know, this one extends all the way from top to bottom. This one extends all the way from top to bottom, and then this is the only one that kind of gets chopped off. Another way to fix that might actually be to take this citation and maybe scooch it over to this section right here, because then you're going to have two white areas to kind of act as colors as well. Probably could also increase the proximity right in here as well, because it almost looks like this citation is getting ready to fall off the page a little bit. But I thought that the way the colors went from one to the next, and this is a very, I'm having a hard time coming up with the right word. It's plain is not the right word, because I would not use that word. Very, very solid. Oh goodness, I'm coming up with nothing here. Uniform, I guess, would be a good example. It's strong, stable. Stable is the word I'm looking for. Very stable design. Sorry, sometimes I just have to kind of talk it out until I get to the right word. So I like these. It feels very grounded. So I actually liked the way that the colors went from the front to the back there. Okay, we have here a psychedelic era. And what I thought was very interesting about this one, this student picked one font actually, because this is the same font, just using different sizes and weights and colors as well. This font had an interesting look about it. It's not your standard serif font, but it's not a sans serif font either. It's not especially complex or very decorative. It has an interesting enough look to it that it fits with the psychedelic poster. but it's not so decorative that the entire composition is really too much to visually take in. The psychedelic era, a lot of the images from there are really, really complex, very bright colors, as you can see here. A lot of them almost have a movement or a rhythm to them, because of the way that the images kind of flow. That a lot of them have the text that's integrated within them. A ton of them I find have this funky little, like, um, not starburst, but this star kind of pattern to it. I know one student likened it to a candy, a lollipop, that kind of thing, and I hadn't even noticed that at beforehand. But it almost has like a spinny wheel kind of look to it. If this text was much more decorative, it could be very difficult to look at this, but because of the font choice, the designer, the student, very appropriately found something that you can still read, and it connects with the image very, very well. So I think that they did a very good job there. They also managed to align this text very well. It is vertically aligned, which means it is aligned up and down. So it's centered. If you take the poor, this is a poor way for me to explain it, because you know what, maybe I can do this. Let's see, we're gonna see if we can annotate here. And here we go. We're gonna take this line, excuse me. You can take the centers of the text and the image, you can split this right in half, and these centers are lined right up. So they did a very nice job of that. With typography, sometimes it's difficult. You might end up with a lot of white space on the bottom here, and you can fix that by adjusting or working with the leading. The leading is the spacing in between the lines. They did that here, you know, in between the title and the creator line, the creator and the error key elements line. Sometimes if you don't have this much text, sometimes that can get very difficult, and that's when you start working with the size of the text as well, and you can even start working with the kerning. The kerning is the spacing in between letters, and you can even adjust the width of the letters as well. I can go over that for anybody that's interested in learning how to do that in one of the multi-sessions. You should shoot me a message and we can go over that. I can do a little recording. Very, very easy tools, very helpful tools. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Uh-oh, what's going on here? There we go. Okay, so this was the color palette that they chose. The layout of the citation within the white space there, it fits very nicely. It's kind of snug and unimposing on this particular layout. Probably would have used some slightly less blocky images, but I think that the way that it was laid out was very, very well done. Okay, heroic realism. And actually, you know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm actually going to go, because I did one of this person's. I think I'm actually, for the next few, I think I'm actually just going to do one card front and back, so I can try to actually get through as many students as possible, as opposed to doing all 3 cards. Hopefully I'll be able to get through a decent amount. Let's see which one. Oh, this is the one actually that I think that, yep, the candy ad. This is the one I was talking about. So we'll do this one. So this particular student did the psychedelic era, and overall did a great job. I actually loved this portion because in addition to indicating the color scheme here, where we could probably have added in green, excuse me, green, black, brain fart there. This actually almost has a similar kind of movement to your eye as these little candy looking things do. And so it almost creates another another reference to the era without even doing a lot. So this individual did a decent job with contrast. We have the name and the dates are in a slightly larger font and in a slightly different font. Probably could have either used these for the titles as well, or maybe because of the fact that the psychedelic era has a lot of very complex design work. If they were looking for something a bit easier on the eyes to read, that is absolutely understandable and a fairly decent choice. You could always create a little bit more contrast just by putting maybe a little line under, just underlining that particular portion or just bolding it. I think so far we've seen in the last few assignment submissions here that the elements that typically are that have been highlighted here have been the name, sometimes the era, and then these titles. Those items are that text is important because it's drawing the reader in. You see the name creator, you want to see who created it, so then you continue to read. Contemporary design application, you think, what could we use this for these days? So that again will draw your eye in, will cause you to read it. So you want to make those items, give them a focal point, and make the individual make the individual get sucked in. Is there anything, Jamin and Nikki, that you can think on this particular item that maybe could be worked, or something that doesn't work that maybe could be improved? I loved this image choice, though. Could you do one more quick up and down scroll? Sure. Which one were you looking at? One of the palettes or one of the images? All of them. Oh, you just wanted to see what they did. I actually really liked this palette choice. This was really interesting. It probably, let me actually zoom out a little bit too here. Okay. You know what? I actually had even thought that maybe you like the simplicity of this one. Yeah, I actually really do too. And I like the way that the colors kind of work together. Having them overlap like this, a lot of people did that. And that's really a nice way to show how the colors interact with each other. One of those elements that you could watch in the pre-recorded lecture. I actually want to use my annotation tool again here as well, because of course I just do the freehand one. That's not what I wanted at all. You know what? I wish I had a ruler in here, and I don't, because I would love to see it. This is kind of a tricky thing. I feel like there's not really the same amount of space over here as there is over here. But that might actually just be my eye. I can't tell. And because I don't have a ruler here, you're thinking the same thing, Nikki? It's funny. And sometimes there is actually no reason for that, because sometimes it's just your eye tricking you, and then you go to align something and your alignment tool tells you, nope, it's right, it's aligned, it's properly aligned. Sometimes the shape can just do that. So if I had a tool here, which I do not have. Oh, you know what though? Maybe I'm going to have to work better with Acrobat, because if I could do this in InDesign, I'd have it answered in 2 seconds. I probably would take a little a shape of some sort, bring it here end to end, and then kind of move it over end to end and see if it's actually the same. So this particular item, if it was completely centered vertically and horizontally, I think this would absolutely look perfect. And if it is, according to InDesign, something like this, because of its shape, could be a trick of the eye. You could just nudge it one way or down, or however you think it would need to be fixed. So that would be an issue of proximity. And this is so slight that one person might see it and someone else might not. But this was, so this was an indication of the color palette for the Victorian era. Oh my goodness, it's 9. I think it worked. Actually, on your end, it must be 7:19. I can't believe how late it is already. I'll have to do 1 or 2 more of these tomorrow because they were just so good. Is there anything else you guys can think of right in this card right here that maybe could be adjusted? Because we talked a little bit about alignment and proximity. Anything? Sometimes I don't know how much time I need to give everyone the typography. Okay. Anything in particular about the typography before I mention anything? Not really. You like it all? Well, that's good. All right. Well, I think that we have, I mean, everything is left aligned, which is a good thing. I think they did that in all 3 of them. They kind of kept it consistent. Yep, they kept it consistent. Okay. If they want, because this is Victorian era, their artwork was a lot, was very, ornate, intricate kind of design work. So if they wanted to keep it kind of basic, they could have very easily just maybe increased the size of the titles just a little bit, maybe make it bold and italicize it, to kind of differentiate between the body copy and the title. Probably could have adjusted the it's all the same, no contrast. This is absolutely true, right? And that's exactly why I was indicating increasing, making it bold or italicizing, increasing the size, but I didn't specify why. So thank you very much, Nikki, for telling, for pointing that out to me, because I was, shame on me, not explaining that. So that would, like I said, that would differentiate between the body copy and the category title, or the bullet title. I think last week on my slide it had said, I had specified that contrast means change. So it would be, it's a different look, a change in the typography going from one to the other, so it makes it a little bit easier to read. And I'm actually going to, I think, stop there, and I'll bring up some more of these tomorrow. I'm actually going to make a little hash mark here, just so I know where I start. Oh, of course, it's not going to let me save there. Let me do this then, because I know it'll let me do this. Oh no, it's because it's open. Sorry, stupid. I thought I had closed it out. Okay, there we go. That makes sense then. So we're going to stop right there. Go back to the show, the PowerPoint show, just for a second. And we will do our week 2 overview tomorrow. We'll start out with that, and then we'll do a few more critiques and brief demo. We're going to be using Illustrator this week for our ad. And like I said, we'll go over that tomorrow. And secret question time. I am going to incorporate these kind of randomly throughout these shows. I wanted to do this a little bit earlier and forgot. So that you never know where they're going to show up. So my secret question today: what breed of dog do I have? I don't know if there are any dog owners out there, any cat owners, any thought, Jamin and Nikki, what breed of dog I might have? And no, he's not a Muppet. I know he looks like Fozzie Bear in the top right-hand corner there. He took a nap with me that day. Labradoodle, so close. He's my poodle. He's my standard poodle. He's about 45 pounds. He's chewy, and he has super curly fur, although the one on the left-hand side doesn't look like it because he had just been confused. His full name is Chewbacca Millennium Falcon Kinney, because my husband thought it would be funny to include the entire long name. My kids couldn't even pronounce it. Yeah, I love him too. He is such a love. He's all bark and no bite. He's the biggest pansy around. But so tomorrow, we have a couple minutes left, but tomorrow like I said, we'll go over the week. Again, we'll go over week 2 very, very briefly. Probably take less time than we did today, so I can do a couple more critiques. We'll go over the assignment details, and I'll do a very, very brief demo, because I think a lot of the students in this class they had a very, very good handle on a lot of those graphic design principles last week. I can even take specific questions, because like I said, we're going to be doing this week's assignment in Illustrator as opposed to InDesign. So if there are specific questions to that software, feel free to bring them to the table, and I can answer them. And we'll briefly look over the assessment and provide any tips that anyone needs on that. But I do want it. There were just so many good projects out there that I want to make sure I get through as many as possible. This is a large class. I think I have 28 of you guys, and 2 hours is just 2 hours a week is not enough to do 28 projects worth of critiques. So if you're watching this recording, or Nikki or Jamin, if I didn't happen to go through yours and you do want some more critique, you can feel free to come in on, Thursday is Thanksgiving. I'm not going to make everybody come in then. Oh, we have a question possibly. Yes. What's up, Jamin? For this week, do we use the same color scheme from the flashcard that we chose for the assignment? Oh, wait, we have 2 questions. Wait, because we had and then Nikki asked one. So mine was the one with the shark painting in postmodernism. Okay, I'll make sure to find that one, and I'll make sure to critique that one tomorrow, unless you want to wait and after the recording, and we can kind of go over it then. I can definitely stay on for a few extra minutes and go over that with you. Mine as well. You got it, Nikki. No problem. I love this. So to answer your question, Nikki, for this week, do you use the same color scheme from the flashcard that you chose for the assignment? No, this is actually a slightly different assignment for this week. This week, you'll be picking an era, whether you want to use one of the ones that you used last week or a new one. That is completely up to you. And the color scheme, it can be completely different. So I mean, and I will double check the assignment parameters and make sure that I'm not wrong. But I will definitely confirm that. When is the secondary critique? The second critique from this week? I can either do it tomorrow. I can make sure to mark yours to do tomorrow, Jamin, so you can just watch it then. Or you can stay just a few extra minutes right now. I know we've been on for almost an hour. That is completely up to you. Yes, I can. I absolutely can look at it right now. And then for anyone else watching this, we're not going to do a multi-session on Thursday. I'm actually going to have it the same time on Friday. So everybody, if you want to come in on Friday, then wonderful. And if not, then obviously you have the holiday off. The assignment said we had to use one of the errors from week 1. Okay, I must have just forgotten that one. So let me reread those parameters, and I'll actually, you know what? Let's do it. We got 2 minutes. I'll do it for you right now. Let's take a look, because I have it open. Week 2 assignment. That way you're not waiting for an answer. Sometimes it's so hard. The assignments kind of get all jumbled together. Okay, here we go. Return to the 3 errors you profiled in week 1. This will form the potential errors you will work with for this assignment. Okay. Note, if you didn't complete the assignment, please share an error from this file. And that's the original file that you downloaded. Next, download the file of content which we'll do that right now, even though I know I have that on my other machine, but that way it's within this recording already. And sorry, I would have had this ready for you, but that's okay. Okay, so now this is very, very common in a client. Well, they'll give you just text copy and that's it. And they'll say, run with it. So that's the information. If you want to change that to February 17th, 2019, 2018, whatever you want to do, that's, that's fine. Just try to keep the February 17th in there. I won't worry too much about the date. So final, design your ad in the style of one of the flashcards you created for week one's assignment. Okay, so to answer your question, Nikki, I would say no, you do not have to use the colors from the color scheme. Go with the style. If you happened to pick an image that had different shades of maybe a creamy yellow with an olive and a dark brown, that's great if you want to use that as well. But there are other images, grunge images out there that use other colors. So don't feel you have to stick with that particular color palette. As long as the style itself is similar, you're fine. And I'll be looking at the whole composition as well anyways. So right here, keep in mind type, style, colors, visual layout. So it's really focusing mainly on the design as a whole. Okay. And we can go over this again a little bit more in depth in the session. All right, and with that, we are out of time. So Jamin, I can definitely, once I shut off the recording, we can go over that image real quick and go from there, okay? Nikki, do you have any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna guess that we probably don't have any more. Message me tomorrow? Absolutely, not a problem at all. Okay, so for those of you that are just watching, well, thank you for tuning in. Shoot me a message with the answer to my secret question so I know you watched it, and we will see you next time. And let's see.